The world believed it was simply another heartbreaking loss, another tragedy that would eventually fade from the headlines. But the hours leading up to Malcolm Jamal Warner's final breath revealed something no one could have prepared for. A leaked voicemail, a tear-stained letter, and a phone call broke open a truth that left even his closest loved ones shaken. At first, fans were just beginning to process the sudden news of his passing. But before they could make sense of it, an even more painful story emerged. And it came not from strangers, but from the two women who had known him best. Tempestt Bledsoe, the woman he once loved deeply, and Phylicia Rashad, the woman who raised him not only on television, but also in real life as a mother figure. A voice memo recovered from Malcolm's phone contained his trembling words, "Tell Tempestt I forgive her. Claire, I'm ready." In those few words, he managed to say goodbye to both women, the lost love of his youth and the maternal figure who stood by him for decades. When Tempest's own recording was leaked, her voice was almost drowned in sobs. "If you forgive me, maybe I'll never forgive myself." It was clear she knew her silence, her absence, had cost him more than she ever imagined. For years, Phylicia Rashad had protected Malcolm's privacy and carried his struggles quietly, but now the truth was spilling out, and it was far more painful than anyone expected. Malcolm had not died surrounded by warmth and support. He had died in isolation, betrayed, abandoned, and forgotten by someone he thought would never let him go. Even in his final hours, he was still waiting for someone to fight for him. His passing was not just the end of a life. It was the collapse of his faith in love, loyalty, and trust. Just after midnight, hours before the world woke up to headlines announcing his death, something shifted. The air felt heavy and cold, and though no one could see it, a storm was gathering in Malcolm's private world. His fans, his colleagues, even Tempestt, the woman many believed was a safe place, had no idea, on the surface, she was seen as his anchor, the one who gave him comfort in a ruthless industry. But behind the public smiles and nostalgic interviews was a reality few understood. That truth was finally exposed by a voicemail and a handwritten letter that spread like wildfire across social media. And it began with Phylicia Rashad. For decades, she had been his on-screen mother, his confidant, and the person who truly understood how broken he had become. She had chosen silence for years to protect him, but after his passing, her silence shattered and with it the illusion that Malcolm had been okay. The unraveling began with a 2-minute audio clip that surfaced online. At first, many dismissed it as fake, but soon, the raw and unmistakable voice of Tempestt confirmed it was real. She wasn't acting. She wasn't performing. She was crying, sobbing so hard that her words shook. "If you forgive me, maybe I'll never forgive myself, but I need you to know I never meant to leave you like that." The message ended in silence, cold, hollow, and final. Not long after, Phylicia revealed the haunting words Malcolm had whispered. "Even the ones who love you like a mother can't tell who's crying for the soul and who's crying for the spotlight." These were not the words of a man at peace. They were the words of someone who had given his childhood, his identity, and his peace of mind to the world, and received only silence in return. Those closest to him say that in the 3 days before his death, Malcolm stopped eating, stopped responding to messages, and withdrew completely. The only person he allowed near him was Phylicia. She visited him late one night. No press, no cameras, just her and the man she once called her TV son. But the Malcolm she saw was almost unrecognizable. His eyes were hollow, his body trembling. When he opened the door and saw her, he froze. Then, without a word, he collapsed into her arms. He didn't cry or speak. He simply held her like a child who had been lost in a storm. Phylicia later admitted with a trembling voice, "I saw something in his eyes that night. A grief no script could prepare me for." He wasn't acting. He was gone. Before she left, he handed her a note with a single line. "Some lights burn so quietly you don't know they've gone out until you're left in the dark." Those words now haunt everyone left behind. Insiders claim the breaking point came at a private reunion just 3 nights before his death. What was supposed to be a celebration of history became the beginning of the end. Witnesses saw Malcolm and Tempestt in a tense, whispered exchange. At one point, she gripped his wrist as if pleading. He pulled away, expressionless, and walked out without saying goodbye. That was the last time anyone saw him in public. Later that night, Tempestt left Phylicia a desperate voicemail, confessing through sobs. I told him I was done lying. He asked if I ever loved him, and I couldn't answer. I just couldn't carry both of us anymore. That was the confirmation Malcolm had dreaded. The betrayal he had feared was real, and from that moment on, he shut down completely. The most haunting discovery came from a voice memo on his phone labeled "For the ones I never got to say goodbye to." In it, he confessed, "I never stopped being that 12-year-old boy. Claire, you held me together, and now I need you to tell them. Tell them I'm sorry I stayed silent." His final words were simple. "Tell Tempestt I forgive her. Claire, I'm ready." He didn't call Phylicia by her real name. He called her Claire, the character who had been both his TV mother and, in many ways, his real one. Phylicia has since said she refuses to release that recording publicly, insisting Malcolm had already given enough of himself to the world. Once fans heard the leaked voicemail, the internet erupted. Hashtags like #Justice for Malcolm and #Final Words began trending. Old clips from the Cosby Show resurfaced, reimagined through the lens of his tragedy. Some defended Tempestt, arguing grief is complicated. Others demanded answers, questioning why she hadn't been there for him. Most painful of all, people asked why no one recognized how much he was suffering before it was too late. Just when the world thought it couldn't get worse, Phylicia revealed another letter Malcolm had given her 5 days before his death. It was meant for the public, but only after he was gone. "I loved her more than I loved myself. Maybe that was the mistake. I thought if I gave her everything, she'd remember me when the noise got too loud. But in the end, she chose the noise, and I drowned in it." The words stopped the world in its tracks. Was this the letter of a man broken by betrayal? Was it a farewell, or a cry for help that never reached the right ears? A hospice nurse later came forward with a chilling account. She claimed a private ambulance was called to his beach villa the night he died. Malcolm was still alive when paramedics arrived, barely breathing, but conscious. His final words, according to her, were the same ones on the memo. "Tell Tempestt I forgive her. Claire, I'm ready." The nurse admitted she didn't understand who Claire was until she saw the news coverage. Then it all clicked. For Malcolm, The Cosby Show was never just a role. Phylicia wasn't just an actress. She was family. As dawn rose over Los Angeles the day after his passing, grief blanketed not only his loved ones, but also millions of fans who had grown up watching him. What was once just a rumor became a storm of truth. Recordings, letters, and confessions spreading across the internet. Tempestt, once cherished as the love of his life, now stood at the center of a controversy she could never erase. Her broken voice saying, "If you forgive me, maybe I'll never forgive myself," continues to echo across social media. Meanwhile, Phylicia remains the keeper of his deepest secrets, the woman who held him in his last moments and carries the heavy responsibility of telling the world what he could not. Malcolm Jamal Warner was not just a character on a beloved show. He was a boy who grew up in the spotlight, a man who struggled to hold onto himself while the world watched. And in the end, he was a soul who longed for love and understanding, but left this world still waiting. In the end, the only person Malcolm truly trusted was her. She was the one he leaned on, the one he thought would never turn away. Tempestt had stayed quiet for a long time, even as the rumors swirled and the storm around his death grew louder. But eventually, she broke that silence. It wasn't a long statement, not even a video, just a short message on Instagram, a black screen. No image, no filters. Her words were brief, but they cut deeper than any headline could. "He told me I was the only one who could have saved him," she wrote. "I didn't even try. That was all." Just a few sentences, but those words, and the silence that followed them, carried more weight than 1,000 interviews ever could. Within hours, fans across the world were shaken. They flooded social media with tribute videos, old clips, and songs that reminded them of him. TikTok users began lip-syncing what were believed to be Malcolm's final words. Artists painted his face on walls in New York, Atlanta, and Los Angeles, with the heartbreaking phrase beneath it, "I loved her more than I loved myself." People were devastated, not just because a famous actor had died, but because it felt personal. Malcolm wasn't only a celebrity. To many, he was part of their childhood, a familiar face who felt like family. And now, the world was forced to reckon with the fact that in his final days, he had been suffering quietly, carrying a pain so heavy that no one had noticed. The hardest part to accept. Even now, nobody really knows why his life ended the way it did. Was it the pressure of fame? Was it heartbreak that couldn't survive under the spotlight? Was it pride, disappointment, or betrayal? Whatever the reason, one thing became clear. The world didn't just lose a star on a screen. It lost a man who gave everything, but never got the same love in return. And in the silence after his passing, as the waves of Costa Rica still crash along the shore where he spent his final moments, his presence lingers. It's not his voice people hear now, but the sorrow that hangs in the air, echoing like a shadow that refuses to fade. The days after Malcolm's death weren't just sad, they were devastating. While fans mourned, people close to him began revealing fragments of his private world. Leaked notes, text messages, and voicemails painted a chilling picture. Malcolm hadn't died at peace. He died surrounded by unresolved hurt, silences from people he loved, and secrets that followed him to the grave. One of the most haunting pieces was a final voicemail he left Tempestt. His tone wasn't angry or full of rage. It wasn't bitter either. It was tired, heavy with resignation. "If this is what love becomes," he said, "then I wish I never tasted it. But I don't blame you. Temp, I just wish you'd said something." Those words raised even more questions. What did he mean? What was he asking for? Not long before his trip to Costa Rica, Malcolm had discovered something that shattered him. According to a family friend, he had overheard a conversation at a private Emmy party. Someone claimed Tempestt had distanced herself from him during the darker years of his career, only to reconnect once he started finding new success again. "He told me she loved the image of him, not the man himself," the friend explained. That revelation was painful, but the worst was yet to come. Just days before his death, Malcolm allegedly received a handwritten letter. It came in a plain envelope, marked with one word: "Sorry." Inside was a short, but heartbreaking confession. "You weren't supposed to know. I was protecting myself. I never meant to kill your hope." The handwriting, according to insiders, looked exactly like Tempestt, whether it was a delayed breakup letter, an overdue apology, or some kind of confession. No one really knows. What was certain was the effect it broke him even more. Others close to him noticed the change. Phylicia Rashad, who had always been like a second mother to Malcolm, reportedly felt something was wrong. She tried reaching out repeatedly in the days before his trip, but he stopped answering her calls. The last message she sent him read, "Please don't go without talking to me. I feel it, Malcolm. I feel something's wrong." But he never replied. Later, Phylicia told a close friend, "I thought he needed space. I didn't know he needed saving." Then came the reports from Costa Rica. At first, the story was that Malcolm had drowned while trying to save his daughter. It was tragic, but it seemed noble. That narrative, however, started to fall apart when a whistleblower from the resort staff spoke up. According to their statement, there was no child in the water, no frantic screams. No one saw him dive in after anyone. Instead, he had walked alone onto the beach, sat for nearly an hour, and then entered the ocean slowly. It didn't look like a rescue, the staff member said. It looked like surrender. That single word, surrender, sent shockwaves through the investigation. It forced everyone to ask, was it really an accident? Or was it a man's final, silent cry for help? Back home, the emotional toll was unbearable. At a private memorial service, when Malcolm's last audio recording was played aloud, Tempestt broke down. "He still loved me," she cried. "Even after everything, he forgave me." But forgiveness doesn't erase wounds. It doesn't undo the silence. and the fractures it left were deep. Phylicia Rashad reportedly refused to sit next to Tempestt at the service. A family source explained, "She couldn't even look at her. There was too much blame, too much resentment." The Cosby Show family, once seen as the picture of unity, was now divided. Malcolm's death didn't just end a life, it exposed cracks that had been hidden for years. Behind the smiling photos and reunion specials were forced relationships and friendships built more on appearances than genuine care. Leaked group chat messages among cast members revealed finger-pointing and guilt. One person admitted, "We all let him fade into the background, and when he came back, it was already too late." Meanwhile, Malcolm's daughter, far from the media spotlight, began asking heartbreaking questions. Why did Daddy go in the water alone? She asked relatives. It was a question with no clear answer, because the official story no longer held together. Online, fans demanded truth. The hashtag Justice for Malcolm began trending, with millions calling for transparency and a deeper investigation. But even if the truth comes out, it won't erase the pain. Some tragedies don't need villains, they just reveal how much people failed someone when it mattered most. That may be the saddest part of all. Behind the fame, the career, and the legacy was a man who wanted to be seen, to be heard, and to be loved. By the time the world truly paid attention, it was already too late. They said he drowned. They said it was an accident. They said the ocean took him. But what they didn't say is what hurts the most, that he left behind not only memories, but unanswered questions, hidden pain, and truths that some may have tried to bury. Now, that silence is breaking. Family members are stepping forward, voicemails are being leaked, testimonies are surfacing, and with them come whispers of betrayal, abandonment, and secrets that no one wanted exposed. This is no longer just the story of an actor gone too soon. It's the story of a man who carried the weight of betrayal and heartbreak until it crushed him. A man whose cries went unheard until the silence after his death forced the world to finally listen. And perhaps that silence, the one he left behind, is the loudest thing of all.